All right, welcome back to the House Environment Committee. We are going to continue our conversation about S325 and welcome Peter Gregory from Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Good morning again. My name is Peter Gregory, Executive Director of the Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission, one of 11 in the state. I serve my board of directors and 30 towns, mostly with Northern Windsor and Orange counties, and two in Addison County, and actually one town in Rutland County. Act 181 was really important for a variety of reasons, one of which was to ensure that the regional planning efforts around the state, regional plan development that have been going on for over 50 years, was done in a more consistent manner. Some regions were using point data to designate land use areas. The names of land use areas varied quite a bit around the state. So Act 181 made it clear that we are to all use the same names for our future land use areas, as well as the statutes described what those land use areas should be about and how they're designed. So for the first time, I think really in the 50 plus years we've been doing regional plans, by the end of this calendar year, all 11 regional planning commissions will have adopted plans that use the same language and have land use areas that have been created using the same statutory construct. So while we work closely with our communities in looking at their plans to develop our land use areas, we are appropriately constrained by statutes on what those land use areas shall be.
Can you, Peter, what is a point? Would you say they were using point data? Did I hear that correctly?
I think some of the regions over the years, instead of having polygons to describe a village area, lines in and out, they would say, this is Oshkosh or this is Green Bay, and instead of, this is the community. Our regional plan in Two Rivers was last adopted in February of 25. So very recently, although they have a life of 8 years, we tend to update them more frequently, given the fact that so many things on the ground change. So it's a pretty recent plan, but right after adoption, we started in on the land use and housing chapters, the big chapters that are facing change with this iteration with 181. We had sub-regional meetings around our region, talking about planning in general, planning 101, if you wouldn't mind me saying that, just helping the general public understand what planning was. Unfortunately, those weren't well attended, despite as much outreach as we could in advertising those, but they were important to have nonetheless. Then we met town by town, each of our 30 towns. We met with planning commissions, invited select board members, conservation commission chairs, local legislators, my board of directors for that town. We met with each of the towns at least once, many of them multiple times. I think our outreach effort was probably triple or quadruple what it's ever been, simply to explain again what we do, what our role in 181 is, but also to field questions on how it might relate to other aspects of 181 that are the responsibility of the Land Use Review Board. Collectively, the regional planning commissions have probably had over 500 or 600 meetings statewide. Thousands of Vermonters were part of those meetings. We've been on television, we've been on radio. It has not been an insignificant effort talking about what we do. In our regional plan development, for some, it seems completely new. But as I've been at Two Rivers since 1989, I've probably been through the development of 6 or 7 different regional plans over that time. The process has been largely the same. And in many cases, our plan has not changed all that much. The names have changed to the land use areas. I would say generally our village areas have expanded to help towns meet their housing targets. A majority, 51% of the housing target, we are building into the new village area, which means 49% will continue to be built in the rural areas, as it always has been. We've also tried to avoid areas that are dangerous, floodways, floodplains. So in some cases, we have some new areas in a few cases where to meet housing targets, we are identifying new areas that are appropriate for more dense development, especially housing. they're safe areas, and it helps them meet their housing targets. When we met with our towns, some of our towns said, we'd actually like you to put in more conservation land than you've depicted on your draft maps. Other towns have said, could you tweak the village area a little bit and include this area? Because planning is future directed, so we're looking at expanding in the future. This is where we want to grow. So it's not just a future, it's not just an existing land use map, it's a future one. So there are some expansion areas. So I think that is what we heard, and that is what we have done. We're about ready to go to hearing. The other major change was in our rural areas. We always had a forest-based conservation area, which had the forest blocks and the habitat connectors. That came into being with laws passed, I think, in 2017. So they've been in a couple iterations of our plans. That area is actually decreased in size. And that is because the statute requires 3 rural areas: conservation, ag forestry, and rural general. So that is a big change, but the most restrictive is actually decreasing within our region.
You say the statute requires 3 areas. Future land use map areas, I guess we put them in 181. Were they previously required?
I think the statutes did require, but not as specific. Conservation areas, things like that. I mean, each region called them a little bit differently. Some regions had a lot of conservation, some were elected to do so. But with the statutory description of what those areas shall contain, each of the regions, I think, are kind of doing what they're supposed to do.
What's rural general mean?
It's the area of rural land generally closest to the built-up areas. And usually regional commissions have policies that allow a little bit more denser rural development. In my regional plan, in my board's regional plan, principal retail is still excluded from those areas. That's still only appropriate in the village areas. But more dense housing development and mixed use in the rural general is enabled under statute rather than in like the forest, conservation areas. 325. It's a bill that VAPTA, our State Association of Regional Planning Commission, supports. We support the changes in definitions and process as it relates to the regional planning commissions. We actually came forward with those changes and worked with the Senate Natural Resources on those definitions. All the regional planning commissions support that. Some RPCs were more active in the minutia of the definitions and how they interrelate with like the downtown designation names. It can get confusing. There are others in my ranks of RPC directors that might be able to answer specific questions on that. But we do support 325.
And as amended?
We have not met as a group since those amendments on the floor happened. That was just, I think, last week. We're meeting tomorrow. We'll be talking about some of the amendments that came from what came out of Senate Natural Resources. Yeah, that's going in some different directions, certainly, those amendments. But we will be talking about those. We also support the LURB's request for more time in working on rulemaking and guidelines for tier 2 and 3. Again, it's not our process at all. It's not the Regional Planning Commission process. But based on what we've heard, the delay is warranted. And I don't consider that a failure at all. I consider that as success, that they recognize that what they're hearing requires more debate and discussion. I think it'll help us in our regional planning as well. I think it's the transparency and discussion is healthy. So the delay that the LURB came forward with, we support. We also support the governor's request to extend the interim exemptions. They've been working, as Chair Watson indicated on a Federal Reserve Bank graphic. Fairly in our region, we've seen some housing developments occur because of those exemptions. So I think that's a positive. Fairleigh is one of the towns in my region that is likely to have already hit its housing targets. They've been aggressively working as a town government with the private sector. And that's what it takes for any success, whether it's commercial development or not. Having the town government not be just a spectator, but a participant in those efforts. So we're very proud of what they've done in Fairleigh. So I think the bottom line in our estimation, in my personal opinion, is 325 improves things for RPCs, for Vermonters and for the LURB in their efforts. I think it's worthy of strong consideration by this committee. I recognize that there are many tweaks that could happen to further clarify. And if you want any of us back for any of those specific conversations, we'd be happy to help. Thank you.
Can you tell me, can you just describe for the committee how your town plans inform your future land use map?
A very good question. In our Two Rivers region, we have, through our town plan approval process over the last 15, 20 years, helped to make sure the regional plan and the local plan aligns in a general way from a land use perspective. So there aren't the conflicts there may have been 15, 20 years ago. We know our towns well. Our staff are in our communities, many times working with town planning commissions and select boards and updating the plans. So we know what their needs are, what their planning is. We're not always in lockstep, but generally we're compatible with what we do. So we look at their plans. We look at capital budgeting and other aspects of municipal government, and then work with the community to draw our lines. And then we went to these communities with our draft maps, and we got suggestions from some to refine them in small amounts. But generally, I would say 98% of the suggestions from the communities on our draft maps were incorporated by our staff and then are now going out to more formal public hearings. So
What happens when there is disagreement, or how do you set? Like, yeah, what does that look like? Have you had any?
oh, absolutely. There are some towns in our region that are just overly concerned about the LURB process as it relates to what we're doing, and they're having difficulty in seeing the difference between the two. And then there are other towns where we've had some conflicts about being a little bit more anti-sprawl based on the statutes. We feel we're following what is required of us. And we might have a town or two that would like to have things a lot more wide open than I think law permits and our regional plan is wow. And we are a regional planning agency. We're not just an entity that staples 30 land use elements together and says, here's our regional plan. We follow the rules, and generally we're pretty in lockstep, occasionally not.
And do you know how many of your towns are 1 acre towns?
I might have 6 or 7 that don't have a zoning and subdivision, yeah.
You opine on like why that is?
Yeah, I think that was a good question. I think it varies. I think that we've had one town want to adopt subdivision to enable them to make their own decisions and to keep the Regional Planning Commission out of Act 250. That may be the same town that was more interested in a wide open, scheme. I think others are concerned about the cost and the effort to administer bylaws. They can't find volunteers for any office, it seems. I mean, the number of unopposed select board members is just amazing. Maybe that means they're doing a wonderful job, but maybe not. So the cost, lack of volunteers to establish, to put a new zoning board of adjustment together or development review board. I mean, and then some have said they like the protection of Act 250. They may not say it publicly, but our bylaw is terrible. It's old. We don't want to do subdivision. We don't want to lose the professionalism of Act 250 to control things.
Okay,
manage things. So it varies.
Great, thank you. Do others have questions? Representative Pritchard and then Austin.
Yeah, so I asked her a question earlier to Ellen and she kind of sounds like she pointed it maybe in your direction. So I'd like to know if maybe you can, answer this for me. In some of the verbiage in this bill, there's a part in there that says the municipality is identified and planned for the maintenance of significant natural communities. Can you tell me what that means?
I would like to be able to point to someone too, because I don't really know. I can't answer that. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's, yeah, I'm not sure.
Perhaps maybe Senator Watson, since it's her bill, maybe she can answer it. I'd like to get clarification. on it.
Was that in 181 or in
No, that's-
325? It's in
Is it,
Page 10, line 1.
Yeah, that's in the original 181.
yeah,
Yeah, the only thing that was changed was the rare was dropped.
Yeah,
I'd just like to know what maintenance.
that's a good question. We'll
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Not all that.
break it down. Representative Austin.
Do you think it would make sense for towns, like Colchester that are just beginning their, renewal of their town plan to be able to postpone it until all this kind of, gets settled? Do you think there's going to be any kind of conflict or changes we're going to have to update anyway?
I think planning at the regional and local level is iterative. So it's never static and nor should it be. I think there's a provision in 325 which indicates any regional plan or local plan that expires between now and the end of December automatically is extended until such time the regional plan is approved by the LURB. We have probably a dozen areas or communities that have 1B potential, but maybe only 6 has decided to go forward at this time and be in our regional plan with this iteration. The others are going to come forward, I think, over time, and especially after interim exemptions are expire. So our regional plan will be amended at that point.
Yeah, I'm just looking at policies and actions, if they're going to be current after this process completes. But like you said, I guess we can go back and revise it.
Right. I mean, local and regional plans have an 8-year life, but we recommend towns constantly look at them and especially their utility facility element, which relates to their capital budgeting and energy. Exactly. It's 8-year to me it was done to lessen the burden on all of us, but to me, it doesn't seem as useful given the changing landscape.
Often does Two Rivers update their regional plan?
It seems like every 4 years, 3 to 4 years. We'll add a new element or health or the forest-based, the habitat connectors and forest resources in 2017 was new. Economic development was before that, flood resilience element, there's always some issue that is something that affects our communities and our people. So housing, absolutely. Our housing element is changing dramatically. Yeah.
Representative North.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Peter, for your testimony. It's very interesting. I was very excited to hear that Fairleigh hit its housing targets. That's pretty exciting. Can you give us a little more detail on how did they do that? Clearly, you said it requires engaged leadership, good thing, but beyond that, how did they with the RPC? What did they do at the town level? Did acquire help from the RPC? Was it Act 250 jurisdiction or not? Those things.
I think it was the exemption of Act 250 that was the main push behind that. Two Rivers, like all regional planning commissions, is actively involved in economic development efforts related to brownfields assessment and remediation. So we were able to bring tens of thousands of dollars to the table for each one of that developer's projects to help lessen the cost.
Because of brownfield remediation.
Yes.
State.
Yep, absolutely. Some of that was EPA money And some of that was money that you all appropriated at the state level to the Agency of Commerce. Those funds have been critical. Also, the town was willing to apply for a community development block grant. And then some granted to the applicant. So that, there are a lot of different things that come together to make these projects go. Government, private sector, regional government.
I think geographically, was it within the village center area, the downtown area, or was it out in more the rural general?
No, it was in the village centers.
In the village.
Yeah, we,
How many units?
he's done a number of buildings, maybe in total, when complete, maybe 40 or 50 or 60 units. Yeah, yeah. I mean, for a small village like that, that's significant. And they're going in locations right downtown in burned out blocks that have been vacant for years. So what we do here in this room and what we do in the field is slow and tedious. But you just keep making progress, and these changes make a difference. They really do.
How did you allocate your housing targets in your region?
It was a statewide target. Then there was broken down by region, number of towns. And then each region was able to finesse it a little bit per town based on their own values. I think it wasn't strictly population. We upped it if a community had a lot of infrastructure or if they had a lot of transportation assets. Maybe a little less if they were a little, isolated, even if they had the population. And again, as it was sold to us and to the towns, it was a guideline. It was a goal.
Yeah.
And there are so many things beyond the capacity of the legislature, the regional planning commissions, the local government to make this happen. We can't control tariffs or the cost of labor or the availability of labor or materials costs. All of those things, to me, have a much bigger impact than any regulatory by far.
Availability of land.
Oh, yeah, it's.
I ask one more question?
You may.
Did you, in Fairleigh, did you use the CHIPS program? And if you did, or
We did not.
you did not?
No, it has not been used yet in our region. It's
Has it?
pretty
hasn't
new.
been?
I don't think so. The league is now just doing a lot of education of regional commission staff as well as town officials on its potential.
Further questions about regional planning process? Peter,
Thank you very much.
thank you for joining.
Yeah, good to see you.
Strong word.
So members, we did hear back from our Sherry committee. They looked at the chloride bill. They took a little bit of testimony on it and they find it favorable, although they didn't do a straw poll, but they didn't have any concern about it. So we're going to stick with our vote on that today. Yeah, it's been on the agenda for, since last week.
Well, yeah.
Our clerk is looking, she's ready.
So just what draft is this?
It's from the Senate. It's as passed the Senate. So,
It's passed by the Senate.
As passed by the Senate.
yes. That's what I just said. So, let's open. With it on. To 18, an act relating to reducing chloride contamination of state waters. Is there a motion to approve S 218? All right, Representative Labor moves to approve as S 218 as pesticide. Sorry, Sakowitz. Looking left, thinking right. Right.
Thinking right's okay, Amy.
Ended by Representative Chapin. Is there further discussion?
Okay.
Seeing none,
Oh.
making sure that I'm getting eye contact from folks. Okay. Will the clerk please commence to call the roll?
Yep. Rep. Austin, yes. Rep. Chapin? Yes. Rep. Hoyt?
Yes.
Rep. Labor?
Yeah.
Rep. Logan?
Yes.
Rep. Morris?
Yes.
Rep. North?
No.
Rep. Pritchard?
No.
Rep. Sakowitz?
Yes.
Rep. Taglavia?
No.
And Rep. Sheldon?
Yes.
Eight to three. Okay.
Eight to three. Representative Austin,
Mhm.
did you say that? I didn't hear it.
Oh, thought I said it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear it. All right, folks, with that, we will adjourn, so 2 o'clock, we have Ellen. Is that true? Coming back in to finish the walkthrough of S 325. And with that, we will